My parents demanded that I hand over my promotion offer to my cousin because he's a family man and needs it more. When I declined, they mocked me in front of my manager at a company picnic. "She's just a lonely workaholic with no real life," my mom snorted. After 1 hour, when my manager called me in, saying they filed a complaint for dishonesty in the workplace. I am 38, female, have always been close to my work. Not because I'm some soulless corporate robot, but because my work gave me the sense of structure, purpose, and recognition that I never really got from my family. I work in IT strategy for a major consultancy based in Washington, D.C., and after years of hard work and going above and beyond, I was offered a huge promotion earlier this year, Director of Strategic Development. It wasn't just a title change. It came with a salary bump, bonuses, access to the boardroom, and most of all, respect. I was finally being acknowledged not just for my output, but for my insight. It felt like winning a marathon I didn't even know I was running. Naturally, I wanted to share the news with my parents. You'd think they'd be proud. They've always acted mildly supportive of my work, never effusive, but they'd say things like, "We're proud of you," in the same tone you'd use to congratulate someone for parallel parking. So I called them. It was a Tuesday evening, and I had just left the office. I told them the news with a big smile on my face. There was a long pause. Then my mom said, "That's nice, but we actually wanted to talk to you about something important." I blinked. "Okay?" My dad cleared his throat and jumped in. "Jordan lost his job again. That insurance firm he was with let him go. And with Tanya not working and the kids, they're really struggling." I said I was sorry to hear that, and started asking questions, thinking maybe they needed a loan or babysitting help. But no. What they said next stunned me. They wanted me to give up my promotion and recommend my cousin Jordan for it instead. They genuinely believed this was possible. That I could just walk into my boss's office and say, "Hey, give my cousin my promotion instead. He's got kids. Jordan isn't in tech. He has a bachelor's degree in business and has bounced between unrelated jobs for the last decade. Real estate, sales, customer service, some MLM scheme. None of it stuck." They said, and I quote, "He's a family man. You're not. He needs the stability more than you do." I asked them if they were joking. They weren't. When I told them absolutely not, that this was my career and Jordan wasn't remotely qualified, my mom said I was being selfish and emotionally immature. My dad said I had no idea what real responsibility looked like because I didn't have a husband or kids. I hung up, and I cried in my car for the first time in a long time. Not because of the insult, because of the sheer absurdity of it all. They truly believed that my cousin, who couldn't hold a job, deserved my promotion more than I did because of his marital status. I didn't speak to them for a few weeks after that. But things escalated quickly. Jordan started texting me. At first it was subtle. "Tough job market out here. Wish I had a way in like you do." Then it turned more aggressive. "You're really gonna let your family struggle while you cash in?" I blocked him. Then his wife messaged me from a different number, saying I was damaging their children's future by being so wrapped up in my cold little corporate life. I blocked her too. I didn't expect what came next. Every summer, my company hosts a family-friendly picnic. It's a big deal. Food trucks, speeches, recognition for promotions, games for kids, all that. I'd never invited my parents before, but this year was different. I was going to be recognized formally as a new director, and Anika, my boss, had encouraged me to bring family along. I thought about inviting them. Then I thought about the conversation we had. I didn't invite them. But they showed up anyway. I still don't know how they got the information. Maybe Jordan heard about the event through someone, I have no idea. But they showed up, arm in arm, dressed like they were going to a country club brunch. At first, they just hovered. I spotted them near the drinks table and felt my stomach drop. I tried to stay away, sticking close to Anika and the other directors. But then my mom made her move. She walked up while I was standing with Anika and a few other senior leaders. "There she is," she said, loud and chipper, clapping her hand on my shoulder like we were best friends. "Our little Claire. So dedicated to her job. You must be Anika, right?" Anika smiled and introduced herself politely. Mom kept going. "Claire's always been such a hard worker. No social life to speak of, but plenty of drive." I tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but she wasn't done. "You know," she said, voice syrupy sweet, "it's a little disappointing, honestly. We thought she might use her new position to help out her cousin Jordan, you know, the one with 2 kids and a mortgage. But she's just very into her job right now. Maybe too much." Everyone got quiet. She ended with, "She's always been more of a lone wolf. All career, no life. I guess she needs something to feel important." I walked away before I could cry in front of my boss. About an hour later, Anika texted me to come to the HR tent. My parents had filed a formal complaint with the company. They accused me of dishonesty in the workplace. Specifically, they claimed I had falsely represented myself as part of the founding family. I hadn't, and that I had used this lie to secure my promotion unfairly. It was so ludicrous, HR initially thought it was a joke. But because it came from family, and they used my full name, they had to launch an internal review. I was put on administrative leave while they investigated. I spent 3 weeks reliving every meeting, every decision I'd made over the past year, wondering if someone, anyone, might actually think there was truth to their accusation. They didn't find anything, of course. The investigation cleared me completely. But the damage was done. My reputation within the team took a temporary hit. I missed a huge client presentation. The promotion ceremony I was supposed to attend? Cancelled. Quietly. No public recognition, no speech, no handshake. Anika called me after everything wrapped up. She was furious on my behalf. She apologized profusely and offered me 2 weeks of paid leave to recover. I took it. During those 2 weeks, I blocked every single one of them. My parents, Jordan, his wife, my aunt, uncle, anyone who had sent me so much as a forwarded meme in the last 6 months. I changed the locks on my apartment. I updated my emergency contacts at work. I didn't tell anyone where I went when I left town for a quiet cabin weekend just to cry in peace. I haven't spoken to them since. They've tried to reach out. My mother left a voicemail crying, saying she never meant for it to go that far. My dad emailed me a passive-aggressive message saying he hoped I was happy now, all alone with your job. Jordan, of course, tried again, this time, asking if I could help him network for a new role. I didn't respond. And now, here I am. I'm back at work. My promotion is official, even if it was quiet. Anika has been incredibly supportive. She actually recommended me for a speaking engagement at a tech leadership conference later this year. I'm going. But I feel hollow. I should be happy. I won. I stood up for myself. But I lost my family. Or maybe I finally saw the truth about them. And maybe that's what I'm grieving. I haven't blocked their numbers permanently. Not yet. There's something about doing that, really severing the last digital tether, that feels so final. I've hovered over the block contact option more times than I can count, especially when one of them sends another vague, guilt-laced message. A few days ago, my mom texted, "We were only trying to make things right. Families help each other. You didn't have to take it so personally." It sat on my phone screen like a pebble in my shoe all day. Not big enough to fully disrupt me, but just sharp enough to cause pain when I wasn't expecting it. That's the thing about my parents, they never own what they do. It's always me being too sensitive. Me taking things the wrong way. Me not understanding how family works. They don't see that they detonated a bomb and are now annoyed that I'm complaining about the rubble. I've started therapy. I never thought I needed it before. But after the HR ordeal and all the memories it dug up, I realized I had never processed the decades of small betrayals, the subtle comparisons, the dismissiveness, the gaslighting. My therapist, Nadia, is the first person who's ever looked me in the eye, well, zoom eye, and said, "That was abuse." She didn't flinch when I said I felt like I was raised to serve, not to thrive. She just nodded and said, "That tracks." I told her about the birthday card they sent a few weeks ago. It arrived in a plain white envelope. No handwriting, just a typed label. Inside, a generic Hallmark card with a message that read, "We love you no matter what. Family first." They'd scribbled in ink at the bottom, "Don't let one mistake ruin everything." One mistake? It wasn't one mistake. It was a calculated attempt to publicly humiliate me and hamper my career because I wouldn't play into their fantasy of family obligation. I've turned that card over so many times, wondering if there's some deeper message I'm missing. But no. It's just another empty gesture that puts the responsibility for reconciliation back on me. Jordan, for his part, hasn't let up. His last message, sent from a new number, said, "I get it. You're mad. But you've always been about forgiveness, right? Maybe this is your opportunity to prove you're better than we were." The arrogance of that message was almost laughable. As if he's offering me the chance to be a better person by forgiving him, and somehow, he gets to decide when I've earned that badge of honor. It's so on brand. A week ago, I was having coffee with my colleague Miriam, one of the few people at work who knew the full story, and she asked, gently, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd just gone along with it? You know, helped Jordan get his foot in the door, maybe, compromised?" I knew she didn't mean it as an attack. But it still caught me off guard. I thought about it for a moment. And I realized, I have imagined that timeline before. The one where I give in. Where I recommend Jordan for some job, maybe a junior role on a team I'm not directly managing. Where I sit quietly at the picnic while my mother tells strangers that I don't need the spotlight. Where I shrink myself to keep the peace. But even in that version, I don't feel okay. Even in that softer, gentler alternate universe, I feel invisible. And I think that's what I've spent most of my life doing, trying to stay visible enough to earn their praise, but small enough to not disrupt their image of what family should be. There was one time, years ago, that I almost forgot how cruel they could be. I had just bought my first car, nothing flashy, just a used Mazda I paid for entirely on my own after saving for 2 years. I brought it over to their house one Sunday and parked it in the driveway, beaming. I thought maybe they'd be proud. My dad came out, took one look at it, and said, "You sure you can afford that on your salary?" Mom laughed from the porch. She's always been impulsive. Probably just wants to show off. I still remember how hot my face felt. Like I'd done something shameful. It hit me recently, that wasn't concern. That was resentment. Because every step I took forward was a reminder that I wasn't failing. And if I wasn't failing, they had to find new ways to diminish me. I was never supposed to outshine Jordan. I was the smart one, yes, but smart in a sterile way. Good for trivia nights and computer help. Not someone they actually respected. I've been replaying my mother's words at the picnic over and over in my head. "She's just a lonely workaholic with no real life." She said that to my boss. In front of colleagues. Like it was an objective fact. Like I was a cautionary tale. But what she didn't see, what none of them ever see, is that I do have a life. I have a warm little apartment filled with books and plants I've kept alive for years. I have colleagues who respect me. I have neighbors who invite me over for wine and board games. I have a gym instructor who cheers when I beat my personal best. I have a barista who remembers my name and my usual order. That may not look like a real life to them. But it feels like mine. And I'm not giving it up for anyone. Therapy has been helping. A lot. Nadia said something the other day that landed hard. She said, "The version of family you were taught doesn't have to be the one you continue living in." I'd never thought of it that way before. I always thought family was this immovable institution, something you endured, no matter what. That cutting someone off meant you were broken, disloyal, cold. But maybe what's broken is the version of family I was handed. Maybe loyalty isn't about suffering in silence. Maybe being a good daughter doesn't mean swallowing the poison with a smile. I'm trying to rewrite that definition. Little by little. One boundary at a time. This week, I got an email from HR. It wasn't anything alarming, just a routine follow-up to let me know that the complaint filed by my parents had been officially marked as malicious and unfounded. Apparently, they were required to notify me once a final record was attached to my employee file. The HR manager, Rima, added a note at the bottom: "Please don't hesitate to report any further contact from individuals attempting to interfere with your employment." Reading it gave me a strange mix of emotions, relief, mostly. But also this unexpected wave of grief. Not because I wanted my parents to succeed in their complaint, obviously. But because it made things feel more permanent. There it was, in black and white: they had made an attempt to damage my reputation in my workplace, and the company officially acknowledged it. No more benefit of the doubt. No more, maybe they didn't understand what they were doing. They knew. And they did it anyway. I didn't reply to the birthday card they sent me. Or the follow-up text a few days later that read, "You can't erase blood, Claire. One day you'll realize what you've lost." What have I lost, really? The illusion that they'd ever see me as a full person? That they'd ever protect me over Jordan? That they'd respect the life I built without their help? I think that illusion needed to die a long time ago. Still, it doesn't make things easier. Sometimes I lie awake at night thinking about holidays that feel emptier now. About the silence around birthdays. About how no matter how cold or self-serving my family was, they were still there. That strange familiarity is gone now, and it's replaced by this quiet ache that's hard to describe. Not regret, exactly. More like an ambient grief that simmers beneath everything. I used to picture growing old with family cookouts in the backyard, nieces and nephews playing in the grass, some version of a chaotic but loving holiday table. That picture's been shredded and replaced by something I haven't quite painted yet. A blank canvas I don't know what to do with. A few days ago, I got a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't recognize right away. A woman named Jenna Kramer. She said she used to work with Jordan at the insurance firm and had stumbled across my profile after reading one of the leadership blog posts I published last month. Her message read, "I hope this isn't weird, I just wanted to say your story really resonated with me. I worked with Jordan briefly, and hearing what happened to you. I just want you to know you're not alone. He caused a lot of damage where I was too." It took me a moment to process that. I clicked on her profile, real account, real job history, real connections. We had one mutual, someone I'd worked with years ago during a contract project. I responded cautiously, thanking her for the message. She replied again, just saying she understood what it was like to be professionally undermined by someone who weaponized charm and family ties to hide incompetence. That was the word she used. Weaponized. And it clicked in that moment. Jordan had always known how to weaponize charm with adults, especially authority figures. He was never openly malicious. Just slippery. Just innocent sounding enough to make you second-guess yourself when something went wrong. He was the kind of person who always had a ready excuse. "I thought you said Tuesday, I never got that email. Oh, I didn't realize that was my responsibility." And people always gave him another chance. I used to believe he was just unlucky. That maybe the world was hard on him. But now I see it differently. He's been making messes and expecting others to clean them up his entire life. And my parents? They've been enabling it for just as long. At work, things are slowly settling. The initial awkwardness following the investigation has faded. A few coworkers even apologized for keeping their distance during those weeks. Apparently, HR had instructed them not to discuss the matter while it was ongoing. Anika pulled me aside the other day after a team meeting and told me she's nominating me for an industry award later this year. "You've shown leadership in more ways than one," she said. "Not just with results, but with resilience." I thanked her, but I still felt conflicted. Because while I'm proud of how I handled the situation, I can't help but feel like I was put in a position where survival was my only option. Resilience, sure. But I never should have had to be resilient in the face of my own family trying to hamper me. It's funny how trauma lives in the body. I've been waking up in the middle of the night lately, drenched in sweat, heart pounding. My therapist says it's my nervous system still processing the stress of what happened, like my body is only now realizing it's safe to react. I dream about them sometimes. Not nightmares, not exactly. More like unsettling family dinners where they all pretend nothing happened. My mom passes me mashed potatoes. My dad tells some awkward joke. Jordan slouches in a chair, wearing that same smug expression. No one mentions the picnic. No one brings up the complaint. They just smile like everything's fine. I always wake up before dessert. I haven't told anyone else in my extended family what happened. I know some of them suspect something's off. I've gotten a few curious messages from distant cousins I used to see at holidays. One even asked, "Are you okay?" I heard there was drama. I didn't respond. I don't know what I'd even say. Yes, my parents tried to nuke my career because I wouldn't hand over a job I earned to someone who never worked for it. That doesn't exactly fit in a text. And I know how this kind of story spreads in families. It gets twisted and diluted, turned into Claire got promoted and cut everyone off because she thinks she's better than us. I can already hear the versions that are probably making the rounds. Let them talk. If I've learned anything through all this, it's that truth has a way of surviving even when you don't defend it. And lies? They rot from the inside out. I still haven't blocked my parents. Not because I want reconciliation. I don't. Not yet, anyway. But part of me is watching. Waiting. Curious to see just how far they'll go. What version of the story they'll spin next. What they'll say when they realize I'm not coming back. Because I'm not. Not the version of me they want, anyway. And maybe that's the cruelest thing I've done in their eyes, not that I refused to help Jordan, or that I disrespected family values. But that I'm okay without them. That I'm doing well. That I'm building a life on my own terms. That their power over me is gone. I didn't plan to see any of them again. That was never my intention. After everything that happened, all the lies and manipulation, I thought the cleanest break would be the safest. I didn't need closure, I had peace. Or at least, I was working toward it. But sometimes, life has other plans. The opportunity for poetic justice, if you want to call it that, came in a way I never could have expected. It started with a message from my old professor at James Madison University. Professor Almeida. He runs a business and tech leadership summit every spring, and he'd seen my recent panel on sustainable growth strategy. He reached out and said he'd love for me to speak at the next summit. Plenty of alumni attend, he said, but we're looking for real voices. People who have earned their leadership scars. I agreed. It felt like a full circle moment. The event was hosted in Harrisonburg, on campus. It wasn't huge, maybe 200 attendees, mostly professionals, a few faculty members, some MBA students. Still, it was a big deal to me. And when I got there and saw my name on the agenda next to industry executives and former CEOs, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Validation. On a stage they couldn't touch. The day of the event, I was set to give a keynote talk called The Quiet Path, Leadership Beyond the Spotlight. I rehearsed every night for 2 weeks. My presentation had nothing to do with my family, on paper. But as I paced backstage, I realized the heart of my message was born from everything they'd done to me. 15 minutes before I went on, I was reviewing my slides when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned. And there was Jordan. He looked older than I remembered, like life had finally stopped making excuses for him. A little bloated, thinning hair, wearing a blazer too tight across the chest. The kind of man still trying to cosplay success. Claire, he said, fake smiling like we were long-lost cousins who just happened to run into each other. What are you doing here? I asked. My voice didn't shake. Not even a little. I saw your name on the program, he said, shrugging. A friend of mine's company sponsors this event. Figured I'd come network. Small world, right? I didn't say anything. He looked around, then leaned in a little. Listen, I've been meaning to talk to you. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I raised an eyebrow. You know, he continued, that whole HR thing? That wasn't my idea. Mom and Dad got a little carried away. I tried to tell them not to take it that far. But they were just trying to do what's best for everyone. Everyone. Meaning him. Before I could respond, an event organizer called me up to mic check. I turned without a word. Let him sweat. When I walked onto that stage, I wasn't nervous anymore. I was grounded. I was ready. I started my talk like this: I'm not going to tell you how to be the loudest voice in the room. I'm not going to tell you how to sell yourself, spin your narrative, or climb by charm. Because I spent most of my life watching those people, those who charm their way to the top, who bluff and hope no one calls it. And I spent my own time doing the opposite. Working quietly. Building systems. Solving problems no one else wanted. Earning trust the hard way, not with words, but with work. And one day, I realized, being underestimated is a gift. It gives you the freedom to grow without someone trying to steal your sunlight. The room was silent. In the best way. I kept going. I told them about rising through a male-dominated field. About being spoken over in meetings. About being told I didn't look like leadership material. And finally, without naming names, I told them this: I was once asked to give up a promotion. Not by a colleague. Not even by a competitor. But by someone in my family. I was told I didn't need the position. That it should go to someone else. Because I didn't have kids. Because I wasn't married. Because I didn't have a real life. I almost believed them. But then I remembered something I've come to live by: no one gets to decide your worth based on what you give up. Your value is not in your sacrifice, it's in your contribution. And anyone who tries to make you feel guilty for standing in your own power is afraid of losing theirs. I didn't need to name Jordan. Or my parents. Or the HR complaint. But from the corner of my eye, I saw his face pale. Because he knew. The applause at the end wasn't thunderous. It was steady. Genuine. The kind of applause that comes when people know they've heard something true. Afterward, a dozen people came up to thank me. A few students asked for advice. One woman, close to my age, had tears in her eyes. She told me, "You just said everything I've never been brave enough to say out loud." I left the event lighter than I'd felt in years. Later that night, I checked my email out of habit. There it was. A message from Jordan. Subject: I think we should talk. The body of the email was short. Okay, I get it. You've made your point. I'm not proud of how things went down, but I just want you to know I've started making changes. I even applied to some real jobs. You proved everyone wrong. I hope that feels good. Maybe one day you'll be able to forgive us. I didn't respond. Because I had proved everyone wrong. And it did feel good.